My name is Yella Trask, and I am with the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, and my role there is supporting our manufacturing sector. So WEDC is the state's lead economic development agency. We're sponsoring this space here and showcasing some of our partners, our academic partners who are working to help some of you get into manufacturing careers, as well as our manufacturing extension partnership. I am delighted to introduce Terry here, and has some really great things to offer on how we want to change the perception of manufacturing, because that seems to be one of the most challenging things that we're all dealing with, as a lot of the manufacturers in our state and really across the country are dealing with workforce constraints. How do we get there early to help promote manufacturing as a really awesome career opportunity? And I love, having had a career in marketing and business development, I love the fact that you say Champion Now is the longest acronym out there. I think I can attest to that. So Champion Now, change how advanced manufacturing is perceived in our nation. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Terry and have him share with us his ideas for how we can all come together to help get more careers in manufacturing. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you very much, Yella. Feel good? All right, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. About 2012, I decided to make an impact in the industry, and I started the acronym Champion Now, which can be advanced manufacturing or American manufacturing. It's interchangeable. The picture here that you see on the screen is a camp that I ran down in Jacksonville, Florida, and it basically tells you what my mission and vision and goal is with Champion Now and with my book, is to get more young people actively engaged in manufacturing. My company is Iverson and Company. This is our 91st year in business. This is my 41st year. I have to be very clear on that, because they say 91 years, they go, boy, you look great for your age. But we have a large social presence in social media with 3 Twitter feeds, 2 Facebook pages, and of course the acronym we've already mentioned. I have 3 distinct groups that I try to speak to. I try to speak to students, I try to speak to educators, and I also try to speak to industry members. And with the name of the presentation being Manufacture Your Future, it has 3 different definitions. So with students, you need to manufacture your skill set so that you can manufacture your career path. And too few students know that there is a very valid and exciting career path in manufacturing. Educators need to manufacture a process of education. Many times they're being measured on how many young people go to college, not necessarily their pathway into careers. So they have to manufacture a different path. And industry members, we need to manufacture, all of us collectively, we need to manufacture how to train, recruit, and retain members, our employees and members in manufacturing employment. Right now, I make a call and I urge manufacturing leaders to lead. We need to make a difference. You know, our culture has become very much blind to the importance and the manufacturing in the United States and manufacturing careers. So it's time that our culture needs to be engaged. Our industry members need to pick up the flag, so to speak, and join me and others like Harry Mosier and other people, and be an advocate for our industry. Right now, our supply chain, it doesn't take long for any of us to know or notice, whether you turn on the news, you know, regardless, go surf on the web, you can see that, you know, since over the last 6 months, we've had, you know, the Suez Canal became blocked. That caused all sorts of problems. COVID, totally, the global supply chain was disrupted tremendously. And so just the Suez Canal block had 370 boats that were in queue. And right now, off the coast of Long Beach, California, East Coast, West Coast, there's ships that are waiting to be unloaded, basically. So now when you go to the store, it's been a long time since this has happened, but there's products that are trying to be brought into the United States, but they can't make it to the shelves because of the difficulty and the complexity of the supply chain. So what this means is that we're going to eventually make it back to make more in this country, and the more we do that, and the more reshoring and Harry Moser and his movement and his initiative is implemented, we're going to need more manufacturing employees. So if you look at the numbers, Wisconsin, I talk a lot about Wisconsin in Finding America's Greatest Champion for good reason. 17% of the employment in Wisconsin is based in manufacturing, just under 500,000 people. To the south, Illinois, conversely, is still very high in the numbers, but they have about 10.4%, and because of the difference in population between the two states, has just over 500,000 people in manufacturing employment. So as you can see, Wisconsin and Illinois both, in addition to Indiana, the Midwest United States is heavily invested in the manufacturing employment. There's various ways to change perceptions about manufacturing. In 2013, I was asked by Congressman Brad Snyder in Illinois to go out to Washington and speak to the Small Business Committee of the House of Representatives on how the difficulty of finding new employees and skilled labor for small businesses. So some of the other ways to change perceptions is, obviously, I've written a book. I try to use videos, which I'll show you a couple today, but it's going to take a large group of people, not just one person or not just one organization, to make an impact. So this is something I can speak to. This is a new term called the Silver Tsunami. Certainly I'm a member of this club because in our industry we have way too many of us that have, gray hair and silver hair. Some of us are starting to join that club. And so consequently, what this tells you, this graphic, is that 15% of our country is over 65 years of age. Think about Japan with this graphic, is almost double at 27% individuals that are over 65. So point being is our industry, as you walk around the path of the aisles of this show, you'll see far too few women, and far too men my age or about my age, or at least look to be my age. And so we need more young people. We need more women to join the ranks in manufacturing. One of the things that I try to encourage is we have to need more of an outreach by industry members, by educators, and by students and parents as well. And so this video I'm going to show you is from Austria. I talk a lot about Europe, about how we need to emulate what Europe does, and their culture is more friendly, manufacturing friendly, skill trades friendly. And so this video is from a company called Rico Plastics. It's less than 2 minutes. There's no words, there's just music. It's a little bit loud, so just be aware when I start the presentation. And I think this is an awesome video.
Pack up your entourage and come and take a ride with me. You're always living large, and life is just a fantasy. Yeah, you're living like a rock star, baby. Yeah, you're living like a rock star, baby. No matter who you are, no matter what you want your life to be, you're gonna be a star. Rolling like a VIP, you rock the town floor, and it's everything you'll ever need. Yeah, you're living like a rock star, baby.
So what's cool about this video is many of us in the industry, we entered into the industry as a young person. We started out at a low level. We had to prove ourselves. And over the course of time, we gradually raised the ranks in our responsibilities, in the different things that we do, in our actual careers. So, but too many of us stumble into that. And so what I'd like to encourage young people and industry members is to consider that it's more of a definitive path and not to stumble into it. In terms of educators, one thing that I'd like to say is that right now education is measured by how many young people go to college, four-year college. And I'll go through the numbers later, but there's a large percentage, majority of the percentage, either don't go to college or don't make it through college, and they don't have to go to the extreme debt to go into debt to get a good paying career. Some of the people that I talk about in my book, Laz Lopez was Wheeling High School's principal. And so he pretty much swam upstream against the grain to have a STEM Project Lead the Way program, and regardless of being measured in terms of young people going to college, he dug in and had a very vibrant program at Wheeling High School. Bob Weissite is a customer of mine that formed a relationship with a high school, East Leiden High School in Franklin Park, Illinois. And as you go through his leadership team, not coincidentally enough, East Leiden graduate, East Leiden graduate, East Leiden graduate. So Mark Hibner and Brian Albrecht is at Gateway Technical College, and he's one of the shining stars nationally in terms of education and technical education. He's president of Gateway. And then Mark Hibner is at a Palatine High School. I call him the Pied Piper of manufacturing. One of the things I tell industry members is to consider joining a manufacturing consortium. Down in Illinois, there's GCAM, and there's also a new consortium called Manufacturing Pathways out of McHenry, Illinois. So I highly suggest considering that. One of the things that I try to do is encourage women to pursue skilled trades or manufacturing careers. This is a poster that I did for Palatine High School. And what I tried to do is, the tagline is they were champions then in high school in their different extracurricular activities, and then they are champion now. And of course, each of them are shown in a manufacturing skill set or setting. One of the things I talk about in the book is that, we all celebrate athletes in high school that sign to play college football or college swimming or different collegiate athletics. Well, there's a movement in two different fashions around the country where they're having signing days for those high school students that are going into community colleges and community college graduates that are going into the workforce, into manufacturing careers. So I celebrate this concept. Internships. I talk a lot to young people, thousands of young people around the country about internships. One of the biggest problems that we have is that young people just don't know what they don't know. They don't know about manufacturing careers. So I suggest and encourage internships. I also talk a lot about mentoring. The subtitle of the book is Building Prosperity Through Manufacturing, Mentoring, and the Awesome Responsibility of Parenting. So there's a lot of components in the book that talk about how important this is. And if we do a better job of parenting in this country and mentoring young people, a lot of the problems we have with having more manufacturing employees will kind of take care of itself. This young lady, Allison, I asked her to promote the STEM program, the Project Lead the Way program. So with a fabric marker, she went with the Manufacturing Creates Champion Now t-shirt and had all her friends sign the t-shirt to promote the manufacturing curriculum. As far as retention and development, we talk a lot about at Champion Now the different facets of how to develop and retain your workforce. Mark Thompson is president of the German-American Chamber of Commerce, and one of his subordinates, someone that works for him, was in a meeting with me in Harwood Heights, Illinois, and said a brilliant comment, which to this day, it's in one of the leading chapter pages of the book. And I talk a lot about Europe and how we need to emulate their culture. Well, his comment is, Germany has the system, but does not have the people. America has the people, but doesn't have the system. So to carry that thought out, the United States has 330 million people. Germany has somewhere between 70 and 90 million people. But the German culture, young people are taught at a very young age to gravitate to what their skill set is, what their interest and what their passion is. And somehow in this country, we gravitated away from that. And somehow as a parent, and I'm a parent of 3 adult children, we tell our children, it's okay, go off to college and figure it out. And we're doing them a tremendous disservice. If just at 13, 14 years old, we empowered them to understand what they enjoy, what they're passionate about, and then encourage that, regardless if it's college, community college, or not, the whole country would be better off and our children would be better off. As far as mentoring, some of the people in this room know that mentoring is a big thing for me. I was mentored as a young person, and that set me up for life to mentor young people my entire adult life. Well, I was speaking out in California to the Cutting Tool Institute annual meeting, and before I got up to speak, the previous session, they had told me about a young person who was the, quote, the millennial in the room, which I thought was a riot, instead of the elephant in the room. And so Noah, they had planned on interviewing me. Obviously, I like this tie. They planned on interviewing me afterwards, and I said, well, can we have Noah join and have an interaction between the millennial and the old timer? And so there's a video on our website now, on the Champion Now website, that we call the millennial and the mentor, or the mentor and the millennial. So one of the other things that we do to encourage young people and mentor young people is, unfortunately, my father just passed about 50 days ago. And so Champion Now had always planned on having a scholarship program, an endowment, an amount of money that would grow, and then the income from that amount would give scholarships to young people around the country. So just recently, within less than a month ago, we instituted the Jerry R. Iverson Memorial Manufacturing Scholarship. During COVID, one of the things that I figured out is that we all figured out, is that there's not a lot of face-to-face ability to teach and learn. And so I had done this manufacturing camp, where I took a CNC machine, shipped it all the way down to Florida, and I had 10 young people that I taught CNC turning, taught inspection and quality control. And we had a great time. And some of those young people actually found their way into manufacturing careers. So when I decided, the president of Cutting Tool Engineering basically said, Terry, why don't we, I said, I have this idea of having some instructional and informational educational videos. Are you interested in joining and helping me do that? So we started what we call CNC Rocks Virtual Manufacturing Camp. And so we have 22 videos, approximately 4.5 hours in length, that either industry can purchase on a subscription basis, schools individually, or school districts can purchase. And then they have full access to this growing library of videos. And whatever money, I think it's $500 for a school, it goes right back into Champion Now to support the Champion Now activities. I talk about Wisconsin a lot. I'm going to now talk about Aliva Strum and Craig Sigilski. Craig Sigilski is pretty much God in northern Wisconsin. He is literally the man in northern Wisconsin when it comes to high school and technical education. But he's also carved out a presence nationally. So what Craig did, and if you don't know the story, Craig started a company inside a school. So you have freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors that are all different positions, and they have a waiting list to get into this program. And so Cardinal Manufacturing makes products for local machine shops in the area. Phenomenal concept. Craig's story's in the book. But the other thing about Craig, going over to the mentoring component, is that Craig has a 10 Commandments. And if you're able to look at the 10 Commandments, be positive, show up, work hard, get along, pay it forward. I talk a lot about at the end of the book that this book is meant to pay it forward. Be flexible, figure it out, join the club. No whining and keep learning. What a great list of 10 Commandments. Anyway, so Craig does seminars on an ongoing basis for school districts all over the country. And so one day, my hope is that there's a manufacturing company in every single high school in the country that freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors can be accountants, salespeople, setup men, programmers, lead men, janitors, marketing people, the whole 9 yards. The other thing that I'll talk about is that I feel strongly that much as my career has been spent selling full function CNC machine tools and manual machines, in order to get the numbers up, we need to have a presence of tabletop CNCs. So we've made the dive or the plunge into tabletop CNCs that we will brand Champion Now so that we can be advocates and promote and actually offer tabletop CNCs to schools all throughout the country. Here's a small CNC mill and CNC lathe that I just picked up a week ago Friday. The other thing that we're doing with Champion Now is that there's something called, we're going to have a portal that'll be a Roku channel, and then also a portal with something called Applicant Advantage. Applicant Advantage approached me to partner with me, and when someone joins Champion Now for $1,000, $600 of that $1,000 goes to Applicant Advantage. And what this is, it's a video portal where students can have their coursework, their resume, their manuscript showing their GPA and what they've taken as far as coursework, their accolades, their involvements, but also a 30 to 60 second personal interview elevator pitch of, I'm Terry, I want to go into manufacturing, I want to be an intern, I want to go into manufacturing engineering or a manufacturing engineer or a programmer. And so companies that join our network on Champion Now will have free access to the Applicant Advantage. By their membership, they'll actually be able to have access to all these items in terms of videos. Conversely, the students will have free access to the Roku channel, which they would anyways, but they'll know and get to know what careers each manufacturer has, what their company does by going to the Roku side of the Champion Now page. So this is something that is value add. The students free of charge, the schools are free of charge. The actual subscription is for the industry members. Once again, we're going to go back to Wisconsin. Imagine that. And I'm going to talk about someone who has a booth here called GPS Education Partners. I was on the stage 2013 for the Wisconsin Machine Tool Show, and one of the people that shared the stage with me was a young man from GPS Education Partners. And what they do is they actually put a school inside of a company. So here in Wisconsin, you have a school inside of a company, and you have a company inside of a school. two very unconventional solutions, but they have an interview. GPS has an interview in the book, and going forward in future books, they'll be included in future books as well. In terms of social interaction, we try to have 3 Twitter feeds, 2 Facebook pages, and of course my LinkedIn feed. So as far as inspiring young people, the next video is about a 3 or 4 minute video that I had produced back in around 2012, 2013, 2014. And this is about 2 young men that unfortunately lost their leg below their knee. And one of them came up with a very clever mechanism that didn't exist with a shock absorber built into the prosthetic. So I hope you enjoy this movie as well.
How do we inspire greatness? How do we rise up in the face of a challenge? We take a stand. We take a dream and we make it real. That is what visionaries do. It's what inventors do. This is what manufacturers do. When faced with a problem, we build a solution. And when a challenge arises, we rally together. We are the people who will take an idea and turn the concept into a new reality that people hold and see and stand on every day. Made possible by support of the industry, a powerful film could debut in theaters across North America. Breaking old stereotypes, this film can change the perception of manufacturing, redefining the industry in the eyes of the very people whose lives we touch every day. Who will be the ones to say, this idea will happen? Who will be the ones to turn a dream into reality? Will you join us in taking a stand for manufacturing? Will you be a champion? Visit championnow.org.
So in that particular case, Mike Schultz is the gentleman that actually designed and built that prosthetic. So here's a life-changing moment where they could have not had the same involvement or activities, but yet Mike decided to go into manufacturing, engineer a product, be an entrepreneur, and do something that can help people worldwide. So one of the other things that I challenge our industry members is to market our industry, do a better job to market our industry. One of the ways during COVID that I tried to do this is that I think ultimately one day Champion Now will have its own podcast. Well, during COVID, it seemed like a very appropriate time to have podcast interviews. So I think we've got 25 different podcast interviews from all over the country and actually all around the world. So there's adequate information and opportunity for information on our site in that regard. One of the young men that I met, younger than me, he's married, has two children, is on the south side of Chicago. And we all know, those of us in Chicago, that the south side of Chicago has significant challenges. And he started a mentoring program called CHAMPS. And it's a male mentoring program. A lot of the young people on the south side of Chicago don't have father figures, and so they don't have a very needed component of guidance. So I reached out to Vondale Singleton, introduced myself, and I said, you have CHAMPS, I have Champion Now, I believe in mentoring. Really, Vondale, what these young people need, besides guidance growing up, is they need a job at the end of their career in education, high school or what have you. So I met Vondale, he interviewed me on his podcast, and this young man is doing great things on the south side of Chicago, I'm proud to say. So what I suggest, each of you will have a book, and please, before I forget, I know I've signed 3 books, but I want to make sure that I sign each and every book before we're done today, and I'll be here afterwards too. What I suggest you do is use the book, get what you can out of the book, and then pass the book on. Try to find somebody that doesn't understand what you know or what you learned in this book, and be an advocate yourself with the information that you've been given today. We have it in hardcover, we have it in paperback, you have the paperback, we have it in ebook, and we have it audiobook. And so the subtitle is one of the things that I find I'm most proud of, is that there's more to this book than just manufacturing. So that's one thing I want to make sure I point out. Back in May of 2012, I hosted a meeting, Jeremy Bout, who's Edge Factor, who produced the video. We hosted a meeting with manufacturing leaders from all around the country. And Jeremy and I were trying to promote some sort of day to promote manufacturing. Well, FMA happened to be in the room that day, Fabricators and Manufacturers Association, and Pat Lee was one of the people from FMA, and we said, we need a manufacturing day. I don't know that we called it a manufacturing day, but we said we need a day to show videos and educate people. Well, Pat stood up and said, well, FMA is going to vote on this next week, and we're going to call it Manufacturing Day. So the rest is history. For the last whatever number of years, 9 years, we've had a Manufacturing Day. And 9 days ago, October 1st, was Manufacturing Day 2021. So FMA gave up the rights or the administration of Manufacturing Day, and NAM now controls that. And so I encourage, if you don't know about Manufacturing Day, promote Manufacturing Day and tell people that are employers and manufacturers to actively engage in Manufacturing Day. Mike Rowe is someone that I try to talk to or talk about. I don't really have direct access to Mike Rowe, but one of the things he says, and these are 2 comments, quotes, that young people are walking like zombies off cliffs into the path of 4-year college degrees. If you're going for a 4-year college degree or you're sending your child to a 4-year college degree, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. Excuse me. But what I will say is that the numbers don't prove out that that's the majority, and I'll show that to you in a second. But he also goes on to say that we're lending money we don't have to kids who can't pay it back, and then for jobs, they're getting trained for jobs that no longer exist, and that's just totally nuts. So look at the statistics. Take 100,000 students, and 79% of them go to college. So 79,000 go, 21,000 do not go. Of the kids that go to, young people that go to college, 33% get a degree in 4 years. So that's 26,000 get a degree in 4 years, but 53,000 do not. Of those, 27% work in a career that used that degree. So you take 27% of 26,000, now you're down to 7,000. So I'm trying to show you the economics. And for those that can afford college, I don't want to discourage that. And for those that know what they want to do, I don't want to discourage that. So I'm speaking to the majority, the others. There is another fact that 60% get their degree in 6 years. So if you go back and refigure the numbers, now you get 27% of that number. It's still only 13% or 13,000 people. So you have either 87,000 or 92,000 out of every 100,000 students that are not given an actual path into success. So one other thing on page 147 is a spreadsheet, and what it shows is this graphic. Here's some of the assumptions that I make, is that it usually takes 5 years, and total costs all in is going to be somewhere around $50,000 in terms of education, which is basically $250,000. And then what I do is I make some assumptions that you're going to come out with a job, which may or may not be the case, earning $75,000, which may or may not be the case, and that you're going to pay back 20% of your income against that educational cost. No interest. We all know that educational loans come with interest, or if it's money in the bank, you're going to be losing some income where that money would have earned. And so at the end of 12 years and paying back, the different costs, this particular student is still $130,000 cash negative, regardless if mom or dad paid for it, regardless if they got a scholarship or whatever. There's still $130,000 cash negative. Conversely, a 2-year degree, I'm going to use $20,000, which is high, but I'm going to use $20,000 for a cost, and I'm going to assume $50,000, which may be low in terms of a job, still assuming the 20% payback, and then going into the working world, in both cases, I increased the salary by $25,000 after about 5 years. But keep in mind that this young person is getting into the system, into their work career 3 years early and earning money 3 years early. So now after paying back the $40,000, now that person is accumulating savings or accumulating wealth, and now after 12 years, they're $90,000 cash positive, not $130,000 cash negative. So this financial model is the reason why young people are starting families later, why they have student debt, which is just a total, sad circumstance. And too many young people are living with mom and dad while they jumpstart or try to jumpstart their career. And I haven't even talked about the fact of a saturated labor pool in one segment versus what we have in manufacturing, where we simply cannot get enough young people in terms of employees. So that's the other factor that I haven't even taken into account. So I challenge each of you in industry, in education, and even in students, or even a parent, that think about what you can do to get into the thick of things in the manufacturing education movement, and then ask yourself what you can do with the book today, both for yourself and for somebody else, and then join me to be a manufacturing champion. So lastly, what I would like to do is thank the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, thank the Wisconsin Manufacturing and Technology Show and the people with Jay, the Parringtons, and everybody else for inviting me. I will make sure that I autograph every book that you have. We have extra books if you want to give one away. And I would like to also encourage you to ask questions so that we can have some dialogue.
more of a statement. Can you hear me?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Because I'm in education. I'm director of MATC in the IT department for 30 years. But when I think of manufacturing before, I just thought of the end result, what the actual product. I never thought about the detail that went behind the product. So I think that's one thing that, in layman terms, that we need to get out is what's behind the finished product. Because if you're not in it, you just see the finished product, and that's how you think of it, manufacturing.
Correct. Yeah, and there's a lot more to manufacturing careers, and I know socially over the years I would go out and talk to friends and family, not really family members, but friends, and some family members, and they have this vague idea what I do, and this vague idea, well, how is the product made? And this vague idea, well, it's not really important, and there's really not jobs in it, and that's not true at all.
This was an outstanding presentation.
Thank you.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Okay.
My name's Russ. I am a recovering college professor.
Okay. Well, sorry for no disrespect.
Recovering college professor. 4-year college, then community college. Loved every minute at community college. I'm a psychologist. I hung out with the manufacturing people. We have been working for the last 25 years trying to make manufacturing become cool for college students to enter. Because at the 4-year college, I saw all of those statistics. Students graduating with $250,000 worth of debt, entering a field maybe in liberal arts or teaching where they're making only a fraction. And without, anyway, I don't want to go on, but it was not a question, but just a comment, and I wish that every seat in this room were packed with some of the people that are out and about there, but I hope you get the message out.
We will.
We have a new cheerleader here.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Ian and Cole, can we get some comments from you guys?
Thank you. So, so what's going on with jobs overseas with what I heard, jobs are going overseas to Europe and Asia and parts of Africa. I just want to ask, what's going on with that?
Okay, so very good question. Fairly complicated and long answer, but I'll make it brief.
Okay.
There's no question that we've lost jobs overseas. Totally true. But a lot of the jobs that we've lost are very rote, very mechanical, very low value add type of jobs. And so one of my inspirations to start what I've started with Champion Now and with the book is Harry Mosier. And Harry Mosier makes a very compelling case, and Harry spoke at this event either yesterday or the day before. He makes a very compelling case to manufacturing companies that have gone overseas and made product overseas and said if you really look at the total cost of ownership, you're really not saving as much as you think you are. You might be saving only 10, 15%, but you think you're saving 50, 70%, and you're not. So one of the videos I did on the CNC Rocks is a global economic model and the cost of making a shirt. And at the end of the day, the shirt difference in cost is not that much, different. And so in our culture, a lot of people think that there aren't good manufacturing jobs available, and there are. And what's happening now is Harry's convincing a lot of companies, and COVID itself is convincing a lot of companies to bring manufacturing back. And so when Harry introduced the reshoring initiative to me, I said, Harry, this is great. I am all on board, but we're going to need more people in our companies to make the products. And that's a whole nother problem. And that's why I started Champion Now, is so that we can inspire, encourage, and inform students parents and educators and industry members that this is job number one, is to be an advocate for the careers. And the most difficult audience that I cannot reach are the parents. That is one of the unreachable, anyone in education knows that. That is one of the unreachable target audiences. And so that's part of it. But our culture in this country, back when I started in manufacturing in 1980, someone made the terrible mistake of saying we are going to be a service-based economy. That was like the kiss of death. And so from 1980 on, what happened is that people thought manufacturing jobs were all going overseas. We did lose some, but we used to be over 20% of the world's goods were manufactured in the US. We still make just under 20% of the world's goods. So while we don't have as many manufacturing jobs as we used to, that's one of the things that we measure. The government measures number of jobs in manufacturing, but doesn't measure it any other way. So as we do more automation and more higher technology, like everything you see here, machines I sell and everyone here else sells, your efficiency goes up and your employment will go down. But the jobs that we do have in manufacturing, the salaries are going up because we need people that much more desperately, and there's that fewer, and it's supply and demand. You know, if you have a Milwaukee Brewer playoff ticket and you have one ticket and you got, you know, the whole crowd of people here today after it, the price is going to go up. Well, that's what you have in manufacturing. All these people need employees, myself included, but there's, you know, too few students to choose from. So you can't just show up with no skills. That doesn't work. You got to show up with a can-do attitude. You know, I'm going to arrive early. I tell all young people, arrive early, stay late, and tell the truth. And that will serve you for the rest of your life in employment, in general, but in employment. And so if you do that, even if you don't have skill, as a manufacturer, I'll pay for your school, okay? As a manufacturer, I will mentor you. As a manufacturer, I'll do things that other sectors won't do, won't even consider doing. And guess what will happen then? Your pay will advance much more quickly because they want you, they don't want you to leave, and they want to keep you, and they want to empower you to be a future leader. That's what's happening. So, is it true? Yes, it's true. Is it as clear as the total numbers in manufacturing employment? No, it's not. Is it as clear as everything's going overseas? No, it's not. In this country, our standard of living and our way of life is dependent on manufacturing staying in this country. What we know, the things that we're blessed with in this country have everything to do with freedom and have everything to do with making things. And that goes back the beginning of civilization, that every country that's prosperous inevitably does make something. Do you have a question? You do? Okay. Thank you for your questions, by the way.
Yeah, my question is, so I see you're talking about the trends of the aging population in the industry. Is there any signs of hope that it's moving in the other direction, like that the work that's everyone's going in, are you seeing any results yet, or does it still take some time to know?
Okay, so there is hope. There is hope, and here's why I'm saying that. One is that you're finding lots of high schools that are opening Project Lead the Way programs. For a long time in the 1980s and 1990s, apprenticeships were being closed down in companies. In Europe, 10% of a company is, if it's a 200-person company, they have 20 apprentices. So in the 80s, a lot of the apprenticeship programs were closed down. Now the German American Chamber of Commerce is doing a great job starting back up the apprenticeships. In the book, I make a comment that we need to tweak the apprenticeship model a little bit, and it's a hard to say word and it doesn't exist, but I call it a printernship. Let's combine the internship with the apprenticeship. Our culture is different. So our culture needs to change, but our models need to change for our culture too. And every solution is a hybrid, middle ground type of solution. So in terms of hope, more companies are becoming advocates. More companies, Manufacturing Day is gaining ground and gaining root. There's more programs. NAM's coming out with more programs. I hope one day to be more involved with NAM. There's more people that are waving the flag, and I think ultimately the buying public, our culture needs to change how we buy things. We need to make more things in the United States, but we need to buy more things made in the United States. So there's organizations like Made in America that are having shows highlighting companies that are making things in this country. Ultimately, I think hopefully our government and our politicians will incentivize manufacturers to keep jobs within this country. And I'd like to think that there's some sort of incentive for people to buy American-made products too. But is there hope? Yes. Do we have a long way to go? Yes. But there is hope, and our livelihood as we know it in this country depends on it. So
I think, at least for me, it seems like the economics might rule at the end of the day, right? You look at those two spreadsheets, you go to 4 years or you go to a 2 year, you look at the price, you look at it, it's undeniable at this point.
It is.
And so that economics probably rule at the end of the day, right?
But that's a twofold point, right? The economics of the education model, if those prevail, you're going to find young people like you that are doing what you're doing, right? Going to MATC, going to Waukesha Technical, going to Harper, going to Oakton, going to College of Lake County, and getting skills. What's happening in the job market is 67% of the jobs going forward are going to need skills, not necessarily a degree. So companies, large companies, small companies are changing the way they interview, and it is going to be gradual. Nothing happens overnight. And our educational model needs to change. That'll be the biggest change, but our parenting unit needs to change, okay? We need to empower our young people and culture. It takes forever to change culture. So don't lose hope. But the economic model on the buying side, that's a tougher one because people want to buy the least expensive, and we need to train our buying public, our consumer, that least expensive isn't necessarily the best value. You could buy something that's a little bit more expensive, they'll give you a better experience and a better product for a longer period of time. So that economics, if people stop to think about it, will play out also. So your point is very thought-provoking. Uh-huh.
Education, always be a laggard, never the innovator.
His point, this gentleman's point is education will be the lagger, not the innovator, right? And that's totally true. For 41 years, I've dealt with educators. About 35 years, I did a deep dive with MATC, was one of my first ones, and we very heavily represented here. And MATC in 1980, 80 to 83, there was a guy there by the name of Mike Stanislawski. And Mike Stanislawski had a full CNC lab with a robotic loaded machine in 1983. That's like in the top 1% of 1% in the country at that time. So I think Mike ended up going into the automotive sector, worked for General Motors or somebody. But case in point, this state specifically, and MATC specifically, is in the top 1% of 1%. So all of you that are involved are responsible. All of you that are going there are right on the cusp of where you need to be, in my opinion. There's also, to your point, Cole, right? Or Ian. To your point, Ian, there's an entrepreneurial element in manufacturing that doesn't exist in retail to the same degree. In other career sets that is undervalued and not appreciated. To your point, right? Entrepreneur. So people that get in manufacturing, they get really good at it and they immerse themselves in it, and then they realize, you know what? I can design something, I can make something, I can start my own company. So that's one thing that's really not talked a lot about. In the foreword, Greg Wasson, former CEO of Walgreens, wrote the foreword, and he talks about entrepreneurship. And he talks about how that is a big component for young people in our country. So anyway, very valid point, and I totally agree with you. Eventually education will be there, but let's don't wait on them. We have to kind of lead the way.